She had 4 match points, and she lost all 4. For months afterward, she couldn't even bring herself to watch the replay. So what happens when the girl who once lost the biggest match of her life gets a second chance on tennis' biggest stage, against the exact same opponent, with an entire nation now screaming her name? What happens when a 21-year-old steps onto a London court and the crowd sounds like anything but London? What unfolds next will challenge everything you thought you knew about how far heart can carry talent. This is the story of Alex, and by the end, you'll understand why grown men were crying on court 12. It begins with Manila, a place where tennis was never meant to be the headline sport. Basketball ruled the streets, boxing owned the arenas, and tennis barely had a stage at all. Yet in that unlikely environment, a seed was planted, one that would be sent across the world to Spain's Rafa Nadal Academy, where a young girl trained among players with every advantage she didn't have. Later, that same girl stands in the draw at Wimbledon, the most sacred, most tradition-bound tournament on the planet, where even the silence feels structured. She is seeded 29, and that number carries weight, because before Alex, no Filipina had ever been seeded here. Not once. But being seeded is one thing. Surviving is another. It's Wednesday on court 12, not center court, not the grand stage with royal boxes and celebrity cameras, but a quieter court, the kind where first-round matches usually fade into memory by lunchtime. Except this one doesn't fade at all. Her opponent is Renata Zarazua of Mexico. Tough, experienced, and not someone who gives away points easily. But for about an hour, Alex doesn't just win. She takes the match apart piece by piece, 6-1, 6-2. 22 winners. 21 trips to the net, 16 of them finished cleanly. A serve once seen as a weakness now holds firm under pressure. 2 break points faced the entire match, and both saved without hesitation. If you understand tennis, you know exactly what that means. If you don't, it's simple. This wasn't luck. This was control. This was a player who rebuilt her game from the ground up and arrived on one of the sport's biggest stages ready to prove people watching that match had no idea. This wasn't a lucky streak, and it definitely wasn't sudden. It was the result of weeks of quiet, deliberate preparation that most of the tennis world barely noticed. Just before Wimbledon, Alex had already won a title at the Birmingham Open, her second WTA 125 crown on grass, against players who specialize in that surface. Then she carried that momentum into Berlin, where she reached the semifinals and, along the way, defeated not 1 but 2 top 10 opponents back-to-back. Think about that for a second. Before she even stepped onto court 12, she had already proven she could outplay the very best in the world on grass. And in between tournaments, she was sharpening another edge of her game in doubles at the Bad Homburg Open, sharing the court with none other than Venus Williams, a 5-time Wimbledon champion. Every rep, every rally, every point was adding up to something most people didn't see coming. So when she walked out to face Zarazua, she wasn't trying to figure grass out on the fly. She had already solved it, because grass doesn't forgive hesitation. The ball stays low, the rallies are short, and there's no time to think your way through trouble the way you can on clay. Most players spend years just learning to survive it. But Alex didn't just survive, she adapted. She built a game around low balance, explosive footwork, and controlled aggression that let her handle those skidding bounces with ease. And suddenly, what should have been her weakest surface didn't look like a weakness at all. It looked like a weapon no one saw coming. But here's where it gets strange, where it stops being just a tennis story and starts feeling like something else entirely. When she walked off the court, the match wasn't the headline anymore. The crowd was packed around court 12 was a sea of red, white, blue, and yellow, Filipino flags everywhere. Dozens of fans, many from the diaspora community scattered across the UK, had been queuing since before sunrise. Some had even slept outside overnight just to secure a spot for a first-round match on a side court. Think about that for a second. People gave up a night of sleep, camped on cold pavement, just for the chance to be near her as she walked off. And when she finally did, they didn't offer polite Wimbledon applause. They erupted. They swarmed her. A flag was draped over her shoulders. Her name was shouted again and again until it stopped sounding like a word and started sounding like a movement. Even Martina Navratilova, a legend who has seen every atmosphere this sport can produce, appeared visibly stunned on broadcast. saying that a side court in London had been turned into something that felt like a home game in England. That's not a normal reaction to a first-round win. That's something else entirely beginning to stir beneath the surface, and it wasn't just those inside the grounds who felt it. Within hours, clips of the crowd swarming her were everywhere, spreading across social media, stacking millions of views, crossing time zones, translated into dozens of languages. People who had never watched a tennis match before were suddenly asking the same question. Who is this girl? And why an entire section of London sounded like a festival. Sports networks that rarely touch anything outside the top show court scrambled to push reaction pieces out within hours. Commentators who had covered Wimbledon for decades went live on air and admitted they had never seen anything quite like it on a side court. Something had shifted, and everyone could feel it, even if they couldn't fully explain it. And if you think that was the emotional peak of the story, you're about to be very wrong. Because the tournament had its own plan. And it was cruel. And perfect. And already waiting for her in round 2. Here's where everything stops feeling simple and starts feeling personal. Waiting in the second round was Australia's Maya Joint. A name that might not mean much to a casual viewer, but to Alex, it meant everything. Because exactly 1 year earlier, they had met in the Eastbourne final. And what happened there never really left her. She had 4 match points. For chances to close it out. For moments where the match was in her hands, and she couldn't finish it. It slipped away, first into a third set, then into a tiebreak, and then out of her reach entirely. 12-10 in the cruelest possible ending. Losses like that don't fade quickly. They linger. They show up later in quiet moments, uninvited, whispering that maybe you weren't enough when it mattered most. And by her own admission, it hurt so deeply she couldn't even bring herself to watch it back to the highlights for months. Now imagine the tournament draw putting that exact same opponent back across the net from her 1 year later at Wimbledon, under the lights of a night match, with the whole country watching. You couldn't script something crueler if you tried, and Maya Joint wasn't arriving as a stepping stone either. She came in riding one of the biggest upsets of the entire tournament, having just taken down a 7-time Wimbledon champion in 3 sets. So this wasn't a routine rematch. This was a proven giant killer against a young player still carrying a year-old wound. The tennis world was about to find out which force was stronger. The first set gave Alex's doubters exactly what they were waiting for. Joint came out fearless, aggressive, and sharp, breaking early and racing through the set in just over half an hour. 6-3. For a moment, it felt like nothing had changed, like history was simply repeating itself, like Alex's role in the story was already written. The player who gets close, but not close enough. But then something shifted, quietly at first. Almost unnoticeable. Alex broke back early in the second set, then didn't just hold momentum, she took it. 3 straight games followed, each one tighter, cleaner, more controlled than the last. She closed out the set 6-2, and suddenly the atmosphere changed with her. The crowd felt it before the commentators even said it. This wasn't the same version of her who had collapsed a year ago in Eastbourne. This was something different. Then came the decider, and this is where you need to slow down because this is the part that turns a match into history. 6 deuces. Back-to-back games stretched into battles of nerves rather than skill. Every point heavier than the last. Neither player giving an inch, both refusing to blink. Willing to blink first. The entire stadium held in suspension on every serve, every return, every split second between intention and execution, and in that pressure, exactly where, a year earlier, she had broken, Alex didn't break this time. She built. Point by point, she found something deeper. Another level entirely. Not a burst of emotion, but a controlled rise, like she had been waiting for this exact moment to arrive so she could finally meet it properly. And she carried it all the way to a finish nobody saw coming. A complete bagel. 6-0. She slammed the door on the set, on the match, and in a very real sense, on a version of her own past that had followed her for a year. When it was over, she didn't celebrate like someone who had simply won a match. She celebrated like someone who had finally settled a score with memory itself, and afterward, in front of the cameras, she didn't dodge the past. She named it. She talked about Eastbourne openly, how deeply it cut, how long it stayed with her, how there was always a little extra fire in her chest knowing exactly who was on the other side this time. At the same time, she didn't lose grace. She praised Maya Joint's level, acknowledged the significance of her earlier upset over Serena Williams, and treated the win not as revenge, but as closure earned through effort. That's not just an athlete speaking. That's someone who has learned how to carry pain without letting it define the outcome. And if you think the emotional arc is finished, if you think the story has found its resolution, sit with this for a second. Because waiting in round 3 is a name that needs no introduction. Iga Swiatek, the defending Wimbledon champion. One of the most dominant players of this entire tennis era, and here's the twist that makes this matchup even more electric. These two already have history, and it's split right down the middle. Alex stunned her during a breakout run at the Miami Open the year before, a result that sent shockwaves through the sport. Then Swiatek answered back in Madrid with a win of her own. One win each. No clear hierarchy. No settled narrative. Just unfinished business arriving at the worst possible moment for a reigning champion, and the best possible moment for an underdog riding an emotional wave that doesn't seem to slow down. Swiatek herself has already admitted she doesn't fully know Alex's grass court game, but she knows exactly how dangerous she is to prepare for, because of her ability to shift rhythm mid-match and completely break an opponent's flow. And if you read between the lines, that's not just respect. That's uncertainty coming from a champion who beats almost everyone, yet still isn't fully sure what she's stepping into. And here's the part that should give you chills if you've been paying attention. If a side court could turn into a home game atmosphere for a first-round match, and a night session could transform into a roaring emotional storm for the Eastbourne rematch, then what happens when Alex walks out to face the defending champion on Saturday? What does that crowd become? What does that sound feel like? Because in tennis, momentum isn't just form or fitness. It's belief that right now, Alex is carrying more belief than almost anyone left in this draw. And here's a detail most people are overlooking entirely. She's not the only one under pressure in this match. The defending champion is walking into this with her own invisible weight. That's the reality of greatness. Every round you survive, the target gets louder, bigger, sharper. Every opponent left in the draw is studying you, waiting for the moment your level dips, hoping to be the name that ends the run. Now add Alex into that equation. A player she has already lost to once. A player who just produced one of the most emotionally charged comebacks of the entire tournament. A player who arrives with an entire wave of support behind her, fans who have already shown they can turn any court into something that feels like a takeover. That is not a comfortable draw for anyone, champion or not. But step back from the scoreline for a second, because there's a bigger story running underneath all of this. It's the story of what happens when representation finally catches up to talent. For decades, elite tennis has been dominated by a familiar circle: Europe, North America, Australia, an ecosystem that rarely opened its doors to players from countries known for other sports entirely. So when a player from the Philippines doesn't just appear at this level, but gets seeded, wins main draw matches, survives emotional collapses from the past, and now stands just 2 wins away from the second week of Wimbledon, that's not just a run, that's a shift. Biggest stage in the sport. That's the part of this story that